Hello, and welcome to The Alt Left.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back for episode 51 of the Alt Left podcast. I'm your host for this week, Matthew Jumbo Johnson. With me, as always, is the good Reverend Dr. K.
Good evening, everyone. Our illustrious normal host couldn't be here with us. He is he's doing homework, for lack of a better term. So good luck to him, and fuck him, because he's like getting an education.
I know. Loser actually gives a damn about his future. How pathetic. Oh, Chris, you aren't missed. At least not by us, but by the rest of our fandom, small though they may be. I'm sure your presence will be sorely missed.
Absolutely. Real quick before we move on, I'd like to just apologize for not being here, for us not being here for an additional week. Unfortunately, life does get in the way sometimes. Things happen, and we're going to move past that. We're going to continue to pump out some episodes here for you.
Yeah, we had a bunch of stuff going on here. Not only is Chris going through school, but I've recently moved. I've had a death in the family. We had the holidays, and I've got a baby on the way. So it's just been, the last several weeks have been insane. So that's why we've missed a couple here and there. But we are back. We should be coming to you guys pretty solidly for the next few weeks here, back to our normal schedule, and we're looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So buckle up. This is hopefully going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, so Kay and I, we've mentioned this before, but Kay and I are really, really into technology and goods and things of that nature. And one of the things, since we realized we were going to be doing this episode, just him and me, we wanted to talk about something that he and I both have an equal interest in. And this is one of those. And it just so happens that this particular topic that we're going to be delving into has a lot of intersectionality when it comes to politics and capitalist policies in general. And the topic is kind of basically about things like planned obsolescence and the right to repair, and what limits we have with our current technology, why we aren't allowed to fix it ourselves, why that's a complete and utter absolute travesty, and how it's actually planned. Like, the manufacturers want it this way because it's how they part of the way they maximize their profit. I mean, when they have to, not only do they get to sell you the device, but they also have to sell you the repair service, and they're in control of all the repair, all the replacement parts. They just get to make their monies, twice, 3 times over again on the same product. And so that's, I think, where we're going to start this episode, is with the right to repair and why it's an important one.
So right to repair, what that really means is that when you buy something, doesn't matter what it is, when you buy anything, that it is yours to do whatever you like with it, and that you have the right, when it breaks, to repair it without being encumbered by the company who manufactured it or sold it to you.
Yep.
So there's a couple of places where this has become really, really super evident, specifically with Apple and the iPhone. Now, I'm an iPhone user. I know Matt is not. I know Chris is not. The issue here really is that Apple thinks about their product not just in a state of when they sold it to you, but every moment after that. And the way that they look at it is that they want to provide the most seamless and best service for their customers. Now, that is not necessarily just to their advantage. It's also to their detriment, not just with their phones, but also with their laptops and their tablets and their regular computers. What happens is like, if you break your phone, right? Let's say the screen cracks. If I take that into Apple, they used to not really do repairs on their phones.
You break it and you buy a new one. That's what they
pretty
want.
much is, if you broke it, they would literally swap it out for you. There wouldn't be any real repair. And so the repair market for these goods kind of came about. Well, the problem with that is that Apple had such a stranglehold on all the parts that you couldn't buy authentic screens for a long time. So authentic screens means something that was actually made by the original manufacturer to fit your phone, not an aftermarket part. So you'd have to go to some guy in a kiosk or in a store in the mall or whatever, and he would fit your phone with a part that potentially was not of the same quality as the original. This is a problem. This is a problem because you should have the right to repair your product. And there has been a huge movement of people that are fighting to be able to repair their devices, specifically their phones. Now, and it doesn't just isolate itself to phones. This is for everything. There's a huge battle that's going on with John Deere, the company that makes some of the biggest and best tractors in the world, where apparently they're in a lawsuit right now.
So it's this big thing because a lot of farm workers have been, I guess, caught, if you will, putting third-party software, hacked software, onto their tractors and trailers and John Deere equipment in order so that they can self-repair it. Because when you don't do that, the way it works with John Deere, much like Apple and a lot of electronic companies and a lot of companies in general, where they control everything about the product. So once you've bought it, while technically, yes, you do own it, if you want parts in order to repair it, you need to go through them. Not even parts. You have to get their repairmen to come out and service your machine. And a lot of these companies will put out things like, oh, it's too complicated for other people to do it. We'd have all kinds of problems with it breaking our equipment. And most of this is bullshit. Once these products come out, there is no end of people that, will go in and try to figure out how they work and do figure out how they work quite successfully, learn how to repair them and learn how to do it well. That's how you get aftermarket parts to begin with. People rip these things open, learn what's inside of them, and they'll copy it. Now, because with Apple, I think this is a good example. They make a lot of their stuff is designed to only work best with Apple made products. Like you can get third-party stuff that works okay, but Apple, I believe, has built their stuff specifically designed to work with their own products, which is another reason why I don't like Apple. I mean, that's one of the main reasons is once you buy Apple, you are locked in. You have to use iTunes. You have to use that stupid, what is it, Thunderbolt cable? Is that what it's called?
It's a lightning cable.
Like there's no reason for it. Like even Apple, I think, is now switching to USB-C finally. But
so they've switched to USB-C for their tablets and for most of their laptops. The iPhones, as of yet, have not switched, which they really kind of thought that was going to happen this year, but apparently it didn't. I haven't purchased a new phone in several years.
But it will. It's stupid, and they can't stop it. But the point that I'm getting at is these companies will lock you into doing this. And now John Deere is in this fight with these farmers, trying to stop them from doing this, and it's becoming a big thing. And I'm on the side of the farmers with this. It's like it is unreasonable for you to sell someone a product that they, by all legal standards, own, and then completely block them from having the ability to repair it on their own.
And I've seen talk to actual farmers. Literally, they had to pay a John Deere technician thousands of dollars to come and service their equipment, where the technician came in, plugged their computer into the tractor, hit 3 or 4 buttons, tractor starts up, starts running, starts doing whatever it's supposed to, and then literally leaves and bills them for thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
This is a reality. And so this idea that once you own it, it's yours, that a company can't essentially block you from being able to service your own equipment, your own devices, your own blenders, your own anything, right?
Yeah.
That you own it. It is yours. You are allowed to do with it whatever you want. It is now your property in its entirety. So this right to repair, recently there's been some new legislation. Specifically, Apple has decided that they have a new repair program where they're going to allow people who are so inclined to do their own basic repairs in terms of like replacing screens or batteries and things like that, that they will provide you with the tools to do so at their facility, in terms of at their stores. Previous to that, only people or only authorized repair companies that paid thousands of dollars and signed all kinds of agreements and things like that were able to do those repairs. But what would happen is that, like, you brought your phone into this repair company. That repair company would have to take your phone. They would have to send the information of that phone to Apple. They would have to buy the part. The part would then have to be shipped to them. Then they could actually install it into your phone. And then that company would have to return the original damaged part back to Apple to get credit for it. So that is kind of going away, which this is a good thing. This is like kind of the first step into getting back this idea of that when you buy something, you own it. The right to repair also kind of moves into something else that I'm also kind of a huge advocate for, which is planned obsolescence. So planned obsolescence is the idea that a company build things only to a certain quality so that after a certain amount of time, they will break. And if something is designed to break at a certain amount of time, why shouldn't you be able to repair it yourself? Why shouldn't you be provided parts by the manufacturer? Like, if you want to make something cheap, go right ahead, make something cheap, but at least make it so that I can fix it.
And here's the thing, it's not just technology companies. Like phone companies are a good example of this. And what I mean is, for those of you that are unfamiliar, with regards to technology, there's this thing out there called Moore's Law. And what Moore's Law is basically a way of predicting technological growth. And it's actually starting to no longer hold true, but it started, I think it's like Gordon Moore brought this up back in like the 40s or 30s, a long time ago. Like, we're coming up on almost 100 years. To keep things simple and not go on a big thing about what this is, it essentially says that the number of transistors on a microchip doubles every 2 years, though the cost of computers is half. So essentially what it's saying is every 2 years, you're going to increase the speed and capabilities of your technology while lowering its costs. And if that 2-year number sounds kind of familiar to you, most of you that have cell phone plans may be well aware that those plans are designed to go every 2 years, even before you were financing. Right now, financing phones is the big thing, where you basically have a 2-year financing interest-free. You pay for your phone and you don't have to be on an actual plan, although you still kind of are as long as you're making payments on the phone. You're locked in with that company. But before they were doing that, you'd sign up with a 2-year plan and you'd renew every 2 years. And the reason they did this is because they knew phone technology was going to consistently get better. And every 2 years, they wanted to incentivize you to buying the new phone. And as many of you have seen, every 2 years, phones seem to get better.
Yeah. And actually, phones of the last, I would say, 4 years, I don't know about you, but the iPhone hasn't changed that much in the last 4 years. I know, like, the Samsung Galaxy class phones have not really changed that much. Yeah, the camera's gotten slightly better and the battery's gotten slightly bigger, and we've gotten a little bit better in terms of the processing power, and memory has gotten a little bit better, but it's not huge leaps and bounds like we were seeing in the early thousands.
Oh, yeah.
In the early thousands, we were really seeing where technology started to get really small, really fast, and really expensive, and then really cheap. I think the reason for that, like he was saying, is Moore's Law starting to break down, where we can't actually double our ability to create processing power every 2 years. It's just not possible.
Yeah, we're at the point of diminishing returns.
Yeah, at some point in time, you can no longer continue to make things that much faster and better. And what we're really seeing now in terms of technology is the software getting greater and greater and better and better. Yeah. That's where we're really seeing our advancements.
And just to clarify, we're saying 30s and 50s, but actually Gordon Moore made his Moore's Law prediction back in 1965. Just want to get the dates right because I think I was
Pardon me, yeah.
confusing that with something else because we're talking about
I thought it
transistors.
was in the 50s, but
Yeah, and you would be closer than I was because I think that's around the time that microprocessors started coming around, or at least the technology began.
yeah.
But I don't know where I got the 30s from. But anyway, but we digress. But yeah, we are getting to the point like transistor technology is going to like we're not there yet, but we are eventually going to reach a point where you can't make them any smaller. And so you're going to get, we're finding now that instead of every 2 years, it's going every 4 years. But again, all this stuff is known within technology based communities, and they build their marketing and they build technology with this idea in mind. And like Kay said, it's now about every 4 years where you're seeing the bigger jumps now. But Apple, I think, has always been known kind of for like Apple's really good about coming up with a great idea and really being the first to make it great and then falling by the side while everyone else comes up and just capitalizes on it. I mean, again, MP3 players that started like Apple is the one that really hit it big with iPods. Like,
but the thing is there was MP3 players before Apple.
Absolutely, but they're the ones that made it big. Yeah.
But they were not as good.
Yeah.
Like they did a great job of making them like super slick and super usable. And then all of the other technology behind it made it better.
Yeah. And again, that's kind of how this works. But we are never, and I mean this, the average consumer is never playing with the biggest and the best technology ever. We're always years behind what's technologically capable because technology is far exceeds the cost efficiency or the ability of the average person to afford the technology. But even then, like you have to accept the fact that what you're getting was made and packaged with the idea that it will be unusable for most people within a couple of years of you getting it. And that's only compounded by the inability of us to make repairs to these things. The big thing I think with phones too is, I'm not going to, Kay, let you speak to iPhones. Personally, I have a lot of opinions about Apple as far as iPhones. Their stuff is overall crappier. It's known, like whatever you get in the most recent Apple, you can get for half the cost and twice the speed for any other maker. I mean, that's just how they work.
Well, and to be honest, that is true. So as far as like iPhones are concerned, the technology that you're getting on any phone is not cutting edge. So, but the real question is what does all the right to repair stuff have to do with politics? And I think what it really has to do is the fact that this is legislation that needs to happen, where we need to start passing legislation that says that it is okay for you to repair the things that you own, and that the companies that make these products, whether it be a car, whether it be a tractor, whether it be a phone or a laptop, or like I said, even a blender, that they provide you with documentation, that they provide you with parts, they provide you with what is necessary to repair these items. So back in 2013, I believe it was Massachusetts passed a law which required automakers to supply repair shops with documentation and information needed to make repairs on their vehicles. And that actually prompted the rest of or it prompted all of the car companies, because they had to make it available in Massachusetts, to actually make that information available nationwide. And most of the car companies here in the United States are members of this now association, the Alliance for Automotive Innovation and Auto Care Association. There's one company that is notably not part of this association, which is Tesla. And Tesla is another one of those companies that has decided that they don't fit the normal idea of what a car manufacturer and dealer is, because they don't have quote unquote dealerships. And how they get around that is that they don't stock a big car lot with Teslas. They have all of these little retail showrooms those are in malls or, in strip malls or, wherever. You go in and you can look at one or two of the models of the car, but you would go home and order your vehicle online. When you talk about these big companies, the reason why we don't have more of these right to repair laws is because of lobbying by companies like Apple, Microsoft, and Tesla. They're the ones that are stopping people from actually putting these laws on the books and really getting these things done.
Whenever these right to repair laws come up, they're fought tooth and nail by these companies. Now, the running line that they always have is, "Oh, we're worried about security vulnerabilities that would affect consumers," but there's really nothing that would affect it. Like, honestly, you're not going to. They try to claim that people are going to see spikes in malware and viruses and security hacks and things like that by people getting access to their hardware, but it's mostly bullshit. I mean, all that shit is software related to begin with. And I'm sure there's some ingenious people out there that might be able to find something for that. But it's easy to get the information. Is as long as you have the phone, anybody that intelligent is going to be able to figure it out without having access already. They're just going to open up their phone and get it.
Yeah.
So a lot of these reasons they have for fighting this is horseshit, because again, they make money hand over fist. I mean, not only are they making money off the products they're selling you, but like we said, when they put these products under their warranties and they are forcing you to go through them, which, by the way, anybody that's ever done this, even with the best customer service in the world, a lot of these times when you send stuff in, it takes weeks to even months to get it back. And and sometimes even then it's a hassle. I mean, gosh, Chris recently has gone through like 3 months of hell just trying to get a PC that worked right. All that stuff that he went through with what was the brand he got? I forget.
NZXT.
That's right. And so Chris actually got a nice NZXT rig, and he was getting the blue screen of death every time. And he kept it was this back and forth that he kept having to do. And I think they sent it like he had to send it in and get it back like 2 or 3 times, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. Blue screen of death means that the software was crashing, and it kept happening repeatedly over and over and over. So he spoke to the company. They said that they would allow him to return it, and they would repair it, and then they would send it back to him. He got it back after having to send it in and be without a computer for like a week and a half. When they sent it back to him, they said, "Oh, well, we can't find anything wrong."
Yeah.
It didn't have any kind of a problem when we were using it. And that's like, well, how is that possible? Like, did you turn it on and look at it for 10 minutes, or did you turn it on and like leave it running for hours at a time? Because I don't know about you, but the last time I even turned my computer on, it was on for like 8 or 9 hours at a time. It wasn't on for 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And a problem like that's not going to present itself in 5 or 10 minutes. It's just not. It's going to take some time for it to present itself, and eventually it will. But yeah, then he got it back, and he continued to have the same problem, and he finally was able to get it sent back in again, and they replaced the motherboard and sent it back to him. I don't remember if it was fixed at that point or what exactly the outcome was. Now he has a fully working PC, but that's another one of those customer service issues that, in my opinion, needs to be addressed. Like, this is unacceptable to me.
And here's the thing: one of the reasons they don't want this, I think, is because again, it's good for the consumer, and we don't have a pro-consumer economy.
No, not even remotely.
We have a pro-corporation economy, but it's not even in the most obvious ways. And what I mean by that is, when you give people the right to repair their own equipment and they are able to do it easily and cheaply, that is another way that you spur innovation. I mean, we've seen this, a good example of this, and I know, Kay, you're just kind of getting into this with gaming, but anybody that's ever been a gamer, the modding community And again, this is a good example of somebody opening up their software to let others play around with it and see what happens. God, anybody that's ever been a fan of the game Skyrim, I know Chris and I have mentioned it several times on here. The modding community for that game is what has kept it alive. That game came out in 2012, and it is still one of the most popular RPGs there is, and that's largely due to the rabid modding community. All these re-releases that Bethesda's doing of this game, for those of you that are aware of it, those are nice and all, but all they're really doing is taking some of the best things modders have done and repackaging it in a re-release of the game. Like, that's literally what's happening. Yeah. But it shows you what can happen when you give people the ability to tinker with their stuff. That's what I mean by it spurs on innovation. You can start seeing people coming up with new ideas and new ways to use this stuff that the original manufacturers never intended. But the problem is, once you do that, it also creates more competition for the companies themselves. Then you've got all these other, and they don't want that. Because again, that would be what's best for the consumer, not what's best for the company. And that, I think that's where the politics of this comes in. We've made no, secret. We've made no secret of our disdain for a lot of the tenets of capitalism on this podcast. And I think that's one of where these 2 points intersect, is why I think Kay and I specifically are so rabid about this. And I guarantee you, Chris is as well. I think Kay and I are a little bit more of the tech-minded, but Chris, in the last few years especially, has really started coming into this stuff too. And there is an absolutely insane political component to this, because it all comes back to legislation. And unless you force a company to do what's best for the consumer, they are never going to do it.
Yeah. And this is also the same problem that plagues like the pharmaceutical industry. Here in the United States, we have some of the highest pharmaceutical costs in the world. And it's not because our drugs cost more to produce. It's not because, we do take more drugs than anywhere else in the world, but it's not because the pharmaceutical costs are any higher than they are anywhere else here. It's because they can charge more because the market will allow it. Insurance companies, they encourage it. The government does nothing to stop it.
Yeah.
You go into Mexico or and you go into Canada and you can get medication that here is hundreds of dollars per pill for dollars, like $1 or $2 per pill.
Go to Mexico with a 20 and I guarantee you'll get the same quality insulin that you're paying $900 a vial for here.
Mm-hmm. And that is the absolute truth. We have some of the highest insulin costs here in the world. I don't remember how long ago it was, probably 5 or 6 years ago. There was a pharmaceutical investment guy that purchased EpiPens, the patent for those, and he jacked up the price to like $4 or $5 or $7 or $8 or $900 a piece.
Yeah,
where you literally go to any other country and they're under $100, I think. But that's the kind of stuff that we allow in this country because consumerism and capitalism reign. And until we, as the people that are using these things, start to really get involved and understand what is holding us back and what is keeping us from having fairer prices on these things, because it affects me personally. I'm a diabetic with high blood pressure. I take a fair amount of medication every day. I inject insulin. I'm on a weekly medication. I take, 3 different pills. Like, I'm on some medication. If I didn't have it, I would literally die. I can actually afford it because I have a fairly good job. But if I didn't, I don't know how I would afford my insulin. I would be one of those people that you hear about on the news where I would be rationing my insulin and one day I would run out and a few days later after that I'd die.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't afford it. Or I would have to do, strenuous things like try to cross into Mexico, buy a bunch of insulin, and then bring it back without getting caught. Yeah. Because it's illegal to bring that shit here.
And the EpiPen guy, by the way, was Martin Shkreli.
There you go.
He made a big name. And by the way, he did eventually get arrested and I think put in jail, but it wasn't because he price gouged people that
Nope.
needed drugs to live. It was because he committed fraud. Like that's eventually what, and not even like it wasn't even fraud against people. It was fraud against shareholders. That's what eventually got him.
Yeah.
When you screwed those with money out of their money, you go to jail. When you cause people to die because they can't afford a basic medication, nope, you're fine.
Our priorities here for these kinds of things in the United States are backwards. They're fucked up.
Yeah.
And this is not a Democrat or a Republican or a conservative or a liberal topic. This is an everyone topic because these things affect all of us.
Yeah.
Things like gas taxes and sales tax are things that actually hurt the average person. It's what costs us more. There's a content creator on, I can't remember one of the platforms. She's from New Zealand. And in one of the videos, I saw her talking about sales tax. And when she came to the United States, she couldn't understand that the price on the tag was not the price when she went to the checkout line that it would actually cost her. Like she couldn't understand that we have this sales tax that goes on top of it. She couldn't believe that we have to tip. Here in the United States, we have this fucked up idea that we don't pay our workers enough, especially our food workers, and so they must rely on their tips to live. This is all part and parcel of the same problem here in the United States of harsh consumerism, capitalism that works for the rich and not for the poor.
Late stage capitalism, people, we're living in it now. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And what's messed up about it, what you said, I think is right, Kay. These are problems that I think ultimately transcend Democrat or Republican. And even in a lot of ways, just straight up right or left. When you break it down, I think in the way we're doing it, where it's just like, hey, this is a problem I see. We should not do this thing. I think most people are going to be like, yes, I agree with you. And then when you start bringing in laws and stuff, then all of a sudden you're going to get, if it's the Democrat that's putting this law up, the right winger is going to say, oh, look at this communist guy trying to tell corporations what they can and can't do with their property. How dare he? And then if it's the right winger doing it, it's going to be, somebody from the left saying, oh my God, look at how racist they are because they only want to do it for white people or some other shit like this. That's where the politicizing of these issues comes in and ruins everything. Not to say that there aren't some issues that are inherently like left or right. Like, I mean, again, you're not going to see many people on the left that are going to be, pro-life, and advocating for those issues and vice versa. When you get into some of these weeds, you're gonna have dividing lines. But on something like this, I think it's something everybody should be able to agree on. This I believe is where Chris gets, a lot of his philosophy from. It's the bourgeoisie against the proletarian. People accept the reality they're presented with. By and large, most people, as long as they're fed and clothed and housed and can get off on a regular basis, like as long as those needs are met, they're going to be fine with everything the way it is, as long as it doesn't personally affect them. Most people, and that goes left or right. I think a lot of people in general are just going to be like, oh, you know what? Things are going well for me. So, fuck that guy who wants to change it. Or why would we change this? Everything's working fine. If you can afford to buy a new phone every 2 years and you're getting something new and flashy and shiny, why would you think twice about, isn't it weird that I have to buy a phone every 2 years? Like, I think that's kind of the mentality that you get. You've really got to flip your perspective on these things a little bit. One of the reasons I have and that's why I've started trying to make my phones last a little bit. That's the other thing is you were talking about planned obsolescence. And one of the big components of that, we were talking about phones, but even a component of the phone, the batteries. These lithium ion batteries just don't have the shelf life. And if people could just replace their batteries easily. You guys remember when we had those Nokias, the bricks?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
old brick
we're
phones,
aging ourselves here, yeah. But those things lasted forever. And then when
they
you
all had
wanted a new
replaceable
battery,
batteries.
yeah, you could just literally, you pop the back off and bought a new battery and stuck it in there, and you're good for another couple years.
But we also, the battery technology of 20 years ago is not the same as today. Like my phone, like I have an iPhone XS Max. So now it is like almost 4 years old. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have the right to buy a battery and replace it.
Yeah. That's the biggest complaint that most people have. I actually looked this up. The biggest reason people eventually decide to switch out their phones. I mean, Apple has that bullshit where it's like after a certain amount of software upgrades, like it won't even work on your old hardware anymore. But in general, the biggest complaint people have is battery life. Like eventually it won't hold a charge as well. And you will see like you'll go, I mean, like you said, we're getting to the point where we've got batteries that are going to last for like 48 to 72 hours now, as opposed to the ones that lasted 12. You're right. Technology is getting better, but because these are rechargeable batteries, eventually it's going to stop holding a charge.
No, of course. You only get so many charge and discharge cycles.
Yes, and people should have the option of either, if they want to buy a new phone, fine. I'm not going to fault anybody that wants the new phone. But for somebody that can afford it, we should be able to replace our batteries for 20 to 50 bucks, slap the new one in there, and get another 2-3 years out of our phone just from the battery life, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think we're getting there. I genuinely feel like we're getting there. There's a lot of places where this is not the case.
There are groups that are fighting this. The Repair Association. For anybody interested,
Yes.
You can go check out repair.org. They're one of the big advocacy groups that's kind of fighting for the right to repair and leading the way. But yeah, repair.org, check them out. They're the ones that are basically fighting in Congress to get these laws passed, to get them up there, going up against all the special interest groups for these corporations that are fighting against it, you know? And I think, like you said, Kay, I think it's progress, slow progress, but it's progress. But we need to keep pushing for it, just like everything else out there.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head with saying that we need to keep pushing our government to make things better for us. In everything that we do, we need to push them for right to repair. We need to push them for better pharmaceutical pricing. We need to push them to make healthcare cheaper and more available. We need to push them for better wages. We need to push them for a lot of things. Continuing to talk about it and fight the good fight is the key here. We need to keep doing that. And until we continue to do that, we will continue to have what we have, which is we get very little.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Medicakes, got anything in the mailbag this week?
I do. So we had a shorter episode this week. Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us. Again, we'll be back to our full schedule next week. But there are two I want to hit on. One is an old one. I'm going to say I'm sorry now. This is to our follower, Kaylee. She actually sent me something back in July, and I had meant to do it, and we kept getting interviewees and things like that where it didn't really fit with Matt's mailbag. And so she kind of got pushed to the wayside. If you guys remember, a few months back, we did an episode where I asked everyone what their worst job experience was. And so she shared it with us, and I never got to do the shout out for her. And I wanted to, again, Kaylee, super sorry. I didn't forget about you. It's just so much other stuff happened that we just never got to it. But we're here now. I want to share this with her because it's actually a pretty good one. It's long, so bear with me. But since we're doing a shorter episode this week, I figured this would be a perfect time to do it.
Don't worry, I got time.
All right. So this was her worst job experience. So she worked the grave mistake at working at a Chick-fil-A, not only once, but twice. I guess there was not too many options that
God's name would you do this?
Again, not too many options that pay where she works. She gave me the state she works in, but again, I don't feel good about telling people where, even states. So, but anyway, the second time she climbed up the position of director way too quickly and no training was offered. Sounds about right for these kinds of jobs. They made her work in that capacity for a month before they adjusted her pay to only $15 for a director position. Keep in mind, she's a director at Chick-fil-A, which was her first glaring red flag.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. Eventually, though, she figured out what she was doing, and her incredible crew was breaking store records on a weekly basis. Amazing what happens when you get a good person in there that actually gives a shit and gives it their all. Sounds like somebody here is pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. I wonder how it's going to work out for them. Our crew was amazing. They deserved so much more than I was allowed to give them. Their owner and senior directors were outright abusive to the staff, cutting their hours over disagreements, writing them up over painted nails that they didn't like or 5 o'clock shadow, and making them work outside without access to a bathroom or extra water for hours on end. Holy shit. God, yeah, I mean, Chick-fil-A is bad, but when you hear these horror stories, it's just, oh. So the official rule was that drive-through workers were to be swapped out with someone that was inside every half hour, but that only happened on her shifts and her evening director's shifts. Okay, so apparently whenever they weren't there, this wasn't happening. She did everything to help, including advocating for them aggressively with the owner, taking money from the register to get treats. I know, but my power was that limited. Nobody gives. Good for you. No, fuck it. Steal from the shitty owner and give them treats. The workers deserve it. Don't feel bad. Their power was limited. Giving them paid breaks when the owner wasn't watching. Good. And helping all of them with their resumes to help them get out. Even better. Oh, I love this. And when that backfired on me, which of course it did, I tried to help organize a union, which also failed. Fucking A, good for you, Kaylee. Eventually, after they fired me, one of my queer friends for not meeting company standards. I think we all know what that meant. Yep, Chick-fil-A, fucking assholes. And after they cut my pay because I couldn't work around paint when they were remodeling, she's allergic to the fumes, I just had to get out. When I put in my 2 weeks notice, they told me that they knew what I had been doing organizing and had me escorted out of the building, not allowing me to work out my 2 weeks and making me lose that pay. There is no hate like Republican Christian love.
That is the God honest truth.
I
don't believe in God.
Yeah, no, 100%. God, what a fucking nightmare. Kaylee, I'm impressed as shit. I can't believe you stuck it out, and I can't believe you actually did what you could to fight those fucks like that. So I know this is a long time coming, Kaylee, but fucking A, good for you. Well handled.
Thanks for sending in that inspirational story.
It definitely inspired me to keep not eating at Chick-fil-A. That's for fucking sure.
I think we all need a little bit of that kick in the pants every once in a while to hear that horror story every once in a while to say, man, there's so much more that I could be doing in my current position.
The next one is a quick one. I wanted to get this one out there too, because one of our girls, Jackie, Chaotic Socialist, she also posted something that was really quick and easy, but it kind of just hit home for all of us. It was a really sweet message just talking about how, she listens to us every week. She looks forward to it. And it made a bad day good for both myself and Chris on Twitter. It was like literally the nicest thing we had that day because we were arguing back and forth with just the shittiest people you could imagine that day. And she was just like, I think you guys are great. I'm just fuck yeah. So thank you to Chaotic Socialist. That was absolutely amazing. We love to hear it. And then I also want to give two more quick shout outs. One to Basehead Faye, because of course, I think once a month we're giving her a shout out for something. And the other one to Mary Riley, because we are both of them on Spotify, the most listened to podcast for each of them. And I just thought that was amazing. I don't know if you're aware of this, Kay, but Spotify does this end of year thing where they give everyone stats. Like even for us, it gave us stuff. But if you're just a casual listener, it'll show you like which podcast you listen to the most, which hours you're doing. So both of them gave us shout outs on our posts, letting us know that they listen to our podcast the most, which just does my little atheist heart good.
I agree. This experience of doing this podcast has been great for me personally, and I appreciate it when people listen. I appreciate it when people say thank you, and that it means something to them that we do this, because we're not getting paid. We do this because it's something that we enjoy, and I'm happy that other people enjoy it too.
Absolutely. And then the other thing I'm gonna end on is I just remembered this. So Chris is not with us this week, but this Saturday he's actually going to be recording an episode on 1945 Germany, Nazism, fascism, things like that, with our previous guest, Jordan, from the 805 Uncensored podcast. He'll be joining them this Saturday. Now, I'm not quite sure on the details of when that episode releases, but I wanted to announce it for this week. We will be including a link to it, probably in this week's episode's description. So be sure to check out that episode. Shout outs to Jordan at 805 Uncensored. We loved having you on, man. You've been great hitting us up on Twitter. We're going to be doing some more collaborations with them. Be sure to check them out and give them some love because they're absolutely great over there at the 805 Uncensored podcast.
Absolutely.
I think that's going to wrap it up for us. It was just me and Kay Solar today, so I hope we were able to keep you guys entertained. Like I said, Chris will be back with us next week, but fuck him, who needs him? But until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and remember, kids, the revolution is you.